Captain Ilara Miles stood on the observation deck of the Resolute Dawn, her eyes fixed on the distant shimmer that marked the line. To most, it was just a border of lights and sensor buoys strung across the emptiness of space. To her, it was a wall that had held humanity in chains for centuries. The line was the edge of freedom, the final warning drawn by the Galactic Concord, a coalition of alien powers that ruled the galaxy with a quiet but heavy hand. Humanity had lived under their laws since the day the first starship from Earth stumbled into alien territory. The Concord had smiled politely, offering trade and technology, but their smile had teeth. Humans were allowed to mine, to farm, to trade small goods, but they were forbidden to grow too fast, forbidden to explore too far. They were not trusted to handle the galaxy. The Concord feared human recklessness, human ambition, human fire, so they built the line. The Concord told Earth that crossing it would bring swift punishment. No ship had ever dared, at least not one that lived to tell the tale. For generations, humans whispered about it in secret. Some said ships that crossed were destroyed instantly. Others claimed they were captured and erased from records. And a few dared to dream that beyond the line lay riches, freedom, and worlds untouched. Ilara had grown up hearing those whispers. Her father used to tell her stories about the stars before bedtime, stories where humans were bold explorers, not subjects under alien rule. Those stories became the foundation of her spirit, the fire that burned in her heart even as she trained in the Concord-approved academies, even as she followed their rules just long enough to learn how to break them. Now, years later, she was the captain of a ship that should not exist. The Resolute Dawn was built in secret, hidden in the shadows of Neptune's orbit. It was not large, but it was strong, crafted with human ingenuity, patched with stolen alien designs, and powered by an engine that should never have been possible under Concord law. The crew who stood beside her were not ordinary either. They were dreamers, rebels, scientists, soldiers, all with one thing in common. They were tired of waiting for permission to live free. The ship hummed with energy as the crew made final checks. The engine core pulsed like a heart. The air was heavy with anticipation. Everyone knew what they were about to do was not just dangerous. It was a choice that could never be undone. Lieutenant Kieran Hale, her second-in-command, broke the silence. "Captain, all systems are green. Shields at full strength. Navigation ready. Once we fire the main drive, there's no turning back." Ilara nodded slowly. She could see the reflection of her own face in the glass, sharp and determined, her dark hair tied back, her eyes glowing with the fire of decision. She thought of the billions on Earth who still lived under Concord rules, never knowing what lay beyond the stars. She thought of the young girl she once was, staring at the night sky, promising herself she would go further. "Then it's time," she said softly. The crew exchanged glances, their fear clear, but so was their excitement. Each of them had chosen this path willingly. Each of them had sworn the same vow, to cross the line and never look back. As the engines roared to life, the ship trembled. Alarms on distant Concord stations no doubt began to scream. They would know. They always knew. The Concord monitored every corridor, every signal. Already patrols would be moving. Already alien commanders would be preparing orders to intercept. But the Resolute Dawn was fast. Faster than anything humanity had built before. Faster than the Concord believed possible. "Engage drive," Ilara commanded. The stars blurred into streaks of light. The ship surged forward, a streak of defiance cutting across the void. The line loomed ahead, a vast net of energy fields, drones, and patrol stations, stretching across the galactic map like a chain of prison bars. It was not a physical wall, but it was as real as any stone fortress. The ship raced closer, alarms buzzing across the bridge. Concord patrols appeared on sensors, sleek alien cruisers armed and ready, their messages flooding in. "Turn back. You are violating Concord law. Turn back or be destroyed." Ilara listened, then calmly switched the comms off. She did not need to hear their threats. She already knew the cost. The crew braced themselves as the ship dived toward a narrow opening in the net. It was not a real gap, only a place where the energy fields overlapped imperfectly, a weakness discovered by human stubbornness and trial and error. For years, explorers had studied the line in secret, mapping its flows, its patterns. No alien dared such risks. They had rules. They had fear. Humans had curiosity, and it was that curiosity that had uncovered the path. The conquered ships fired beams of energy, lances of blue light slicing across the void. The Resolute Dawn twisted and rolled, its human pilot Maya Wren gritting her teeth as she forced the ship into maneuvers the aliens would never expect. Human pilots did not follow neat patterns. They improvised. They risked. And sometimes they survived because of it. The shields groaned under the impact of near misses, but the ship pressed on. The energy net loomed closer, a wall of shimmering light that seemed unbreakable. The crew held their breath. At the last moment, Maya slammed the ship into a roll, diving into the narrow corridor. The engines howled, the shields screamed, the hull shuddered as if it would tear apart. But the ship did not stop. It burst through the crack in the line like a bullet through glass. For a heartbeat, everything was silent. Then they were through. The alarm ceased. The enemy fire faded behind them. Ahead stretched an ocean of stars, untouched, unexplored. No conquered patrols. No stations. No chains. The crew erupted in cheers, their voices raw with relief and triumph. Kieran laughed, slamming his hand against the console. Maya let out a whoop of victory. Even the engineers in the lower decks were shouting, hugging each other, unable to believe what they had done. Alara simply stood at the glass, staring out at the endless night. She felt the weight of history pressing on her shoulders. They had done it. They had crossed the line. Humanity was no longer confined, but in the back of her mind she knew the truth. This was only the beginning. The conquered would not forgive. They would not forget. Already messages would be spreading through alien networks. Already plans would be forming to hunt them down. And yet she smiled. The silence beyond the line was heavier than anyone expected. The crew of the Resolute Dawn had imagined freedom would feel like celebration, but once the shouting and cheering faded, the quiet was almost frightening. For the first time in history, a human ship floated in a region no one was meant to enter. Every blinking star ahead was a mystery. Every shadow might hide danger. Captain Alara Miles sat in her chair, her hands gripping the armrests. She could feel the tension in the air. The crew was still smiling, but underneath the joy was uncertainty. They had made history, but what came next? The galaxy beyond the line was not empty. It was unknown, and the unknown was always dangerous. Status report, Alara said calmly. Lieutenant Kieran Hale scanned the sensors. Engines stable. Shields holding. No immediate threats on short-range scans. Long-range? Well, it's all new. The charts end here. We're the first to see any of this. Those words sank into the room. The first. Humanity had always been explorers, but this was different. This was not a new island on Earth or a planet within the Sol system. This was a leap into a mapless sea. The pilot, Maya Wren, leaned back in her chair, her hand still trembling slightly from the desperate maneuvers that got them through the line. Feels strange, doesn't it? Like stepping off a cliff, not knowing if there's ground on the other side. Alara nodded. That's what freedom feels like. The crew fell quiet again, each of them staring at the screens that now displayed systems, stars, and nebulae untouched by conquered control. Beautiful swirls of gas stretched across the black, glowing with soft blues and fiery reds. Strange anomalies flickered in the distance, distortions that twisted light in ways no one had studied before. But their moment of wonder was cut short. The comm officer, Rin Calder, spoke up. Captain, conquered transmissions detected. They're behind us. They know we broke through. Kieran cursed under his breath. That was fast. It was expected, Alara said evenly. She had known the Concord would not simply let them escape. They would hunt. They would punish. But she also knew this. The Resolute Dawn had one advantage: speed. If they kept moving, they had a chance. Plot a course away from the patrol vectors, she ordered. No straight lines. Keep them guessing. Maya smirked, her pilot's instincts already sharpening. They'll never catch us if I have anything to say about it. The ship jumped forward, weaving through gravitational corridors that no alien commander would dare navigate so recklessly. Humans had mapped them not with perfect science but with stubborn trial and error. Where others followed rules, humans improvised. That was their edge. Hours passed in tense silence. The conquered ships pursued, but distance grew between them. Soon the sensors showed no more traces. The crew breathed easier, though no one truly relaxed. They all knew the Concord never gave up. Days turned into weeks as the Resolute Dawn pushed deeper into uncharted space. Each system they passed brought new wonders. Planets of crystal towers reflecting starlight, moons that glowed with bioluminescent forests, black holes surrounded by rings of strange particles, bending light like living mirrors. The crew recorded everything, knowing that each discovery rewrote humanity's place in the galaxy. But wonder was mixed with caution. Not everything they found was safe. One evening, the ship drifted into orbit around a shattered world. The planet's surface was split open as if torn apart by massive claws. Vast scars ran across the crust, glowing faintly with energy. Scans show structures, Kieran reported, his voice low. Not natural. Some kind of ancient ruins buried in the cracks. The crew gathered at the observation windows, staring at the dead world. The ruins were enormous, stretching for miles, half buried under stone and ash. No one could tell how old they were. Ilara felt a chill. Who built this? Rin shook his head. No records. Nothing in conquered databases. This predates everything we know. They debated whether to explore. Some argued it was too risky. Others, like the ship's scientist, Dr. Leora Vance, insisted they could not turn away from the chance to uncover knowledge older than the conquered itself. In the end, Ilara gave the order. A small team descended to the planet, their suits glowing faintly under the ruined sky. The ruins were silent but not dead. Strange machines lined the cracked walls, their surfaces still humming with weak energy after thousands, maybe millions of years. Symbols covered the structures. Patterns unlike any language known to the conquered or humanity, Dr. Leora whispered as she studied them. This isn't just a ruin. It's a warning. What do you mean? Ilara asked. These symbols? They repeat. Over and over. It's like they're trying to say something simple, something urgent, a message carved into stone so no one could ignore it. They brought back fragments, scanning them aboard the ship. Hours later, Leora stood before the crew with her translation attempt. It says, "Do not wake the machines." A silence heavier than the line itself filled the room. Before anyone could respond, alarms screamed across the ship. Kieran's voice was sharp. "Captain, something's moving under the planet's surface." On the screens, massive structures began to rise, shaking off dust and rubble. Shapes like towers, but moving like living things. Machines the size of mountains, ancient and terrible, stirring from slumber. The resolute Dawn pulled away from orbit just as beams of searing energy lashed upward, cutting the sky. The ruins were not ruins at all. They were prisons, and something had just been awakened. "Engines to full," Ilara shouted. The ship tore away, dodging blasts that lit the void behind them. The ancient machines did not pursue far, but the message was clear. Beyond the line was not just freedom, it was danger humanity could not yet imagine. Hours later, as the crew sat in shaken silence, Rin spoke in a whisper. Maybe the conquered didn't build the line just to control us, maybe. It was to keep us away from things like that. The thought lingered. For the first time, doubt crept into their triumph. Had they made a mistake? Ilara looked around at her crew. Their faces were pale, their eyes haunted, but she saw no fear of turning back. Only determination. "No," she said firmly. "The conquered controls the line to control us. The dangers beyond, those are real, but they are not cages. They are challenges, and humanity was made to face challenges." The crew straightened, their resolve returning. They had crossed the line, they had survived. They had seen wonders and horrors, and still none of them wanted to turn back. In the darkness of space, the resolute Dawn pressed forward deeper into the unknown. Behind them, the Concord hunted. Ahead, ancient secrets waited. For the first time, humanity was not just another subject species under galactic law. They were explorers again. They were free. And whatever dangers came, they would face them together. Ilara stood at the glass, staring at the endless stars. Her voice was soft, but it carried through the bridge. "We crossed the line," she said, "and we will never look back." The resolute Dawn drifted on the edge of a dying star system, its engines burning low to conserve fuel. The system was strange, almost broken. The central star pulsed with unstable energy, its surface cracking and swelling like a wound ready to burst. Around it, planets had already been destroyed, their fragments pulled into fiery rings that shimmered in chaotic orbits. The light of the dying sun painted the ship in shades of gold and crimson, beautiful, but dangerous. Captain Ilara Miles stood at the front of the bridge, her eyes fixed on the star. She had chosen this system for one reason: The chaos of its gravity made it nearly impossible for normal ships to track or maneuver. It was the perfect place to hide from the conquered fleets that had been hunting them ever since they crossed the line. But hiding could not last forever. "Engines cooling," reported Chief Engineer Joran Tice, his voice rough with exhaustion. He had been working without rest for days. "If we push them harder, they'll tear themselves apart. We need time to repair, or we won't outrun anyone." Alara gave him a slow nod. She knew he was right. But time was the one thing they didn't have. "Any sign of pursuit?" she asked. Lieutenant Kieran Hale, standing at the sensor console, hesitated. His jaw tightened before he spoke. "Yes, Captain. Multiple conquered signatures. Long range but closing fast. A fleet, not just patrols." The room fell into silence. A fleet. That meant the Conquered was finished playing. They were sending enough ships to crush the Resolute Dawn and make an example of humanity. Pilot Maya Wren slammed her fist lightly against her console. "They never stop, do they? It's like we're a thorn in their perfect little garden, and they'll rip out the whole flower bed just to kill us." "They fear what we represent," Alara said softly. "Not just this ship, not just us. They fear what humanity might inspire in others. If we succeed, if we survive, then the line loses its power. Every species under their control will ask, why not us?" The truth hung heavy in the air. This wasn't only about one ship anymore. Their journey had already begun to spread through whispers and hidden transmissions. Stories of humans crossing the line traveled faster than any fleet. If they were destroyed, the Concorde would claim it was proof of their authority. But if they lived, Alara turned sharply. "We will live." Her crew looked at her with renewed determination, but Kieran's voice was grim. "Captain, the fleet will be here within hours. We can't fight them head on. Even with everything we've scavenged, even with our tricks, they have numbers and firepower we can't match." Dr. Leora Vance, the scientist who had studied the ancient ruins, spoke hesitantly. "The star, it's unstable. It could collapse soon. If we stay here, we'll be caught in it." An idea flickered in Alara's mind. Dangerous. Impossible. Human. She studied the star on the screen, watching it swell and tremble. Its surface erupted with flares of energy that bent space itself. To most species, this was death. To humans, it was an opportunity. "What if," Alara said slowly, "we use the collapse?" The crew stared at her. Kieran frowned. "Captain, with respect, that's suicide. The gravity waves will rip us apart." "Not if we ride them," Alara countered. "Think about it. The conquered fleet won't dare come close. They'll keep their distance until the star settles. But if we use the collapse, if we time it perfectly, we can slingshot out on the gravity surge. We'd be moving faster than their drives can follow. We'd vanish into the void before they even understand what we've done." Silence. The kind of silence where everyone's mind races, weighing life and death. Maya was the first to speak, a grin slowly spreading across her face. "That's insane, I love it." Joran groaned, rubbing his forehead. "Do you have any idea how precise the timing would have to be? One miscalculation and the star rips us apart atom by atom." "Then we won't miscalculate," Alara said firmly. She turned to Dr. Leora. "Can you predict the collapse?" Leora hesitated, her fingers dancing across the console. Streams of data filled the screens, models of energy flows and gravitational tides. She bit her lip. "It's possible. I can't predict the exact moment, but I can narrow it down to a window. If we align the ship in that window and fire the engines at the right second, we might survive." "Might," Joran repeated. "That's comforting." Alara looked around the bridge, meeting each pair of eyes. "This is our chance. If we run, they'll catch us. If we fight, they'll destroy us. If we wait, the star will kill us. But if we take this risk, we can escape. And more than that, we can show the galaxy what it means to be human, that we don't just accept limits, that we turn danger into victory." The crew was silent, but she saw the spark ignite in them again. Fear, yes, but also resolve. They had crossed the line once already. Now it was time to cross another. Preparations began immediately. Engineers reinforced the hull with every spare plate of alloy. Leora calculated and recalculated the star's collapse, her eyes dark from lack of sleep. Maya practiced simulations of the maneuver, each one ending in either breathtaking escape or fiery death. Hours later, alarms blared. "They're here," Kieran reported, his voice sharp. "Conquered fleet entering the system. 15 ships, maybe more." The screens lit up with alien cruisers sliding into orbit, their sleek silver hulls gleaming in the dying light of the star. They formed a net, cutting off all escape routes. Messages flooded in again. Surrender. Power down. Prepare for boarding. Alara ignored them. "Is the star ready?" Leora's hands trembled as she typed the final sequence. "Collapse in minutes. We need to be in position now." "Helm, take us in," Alara ordered. The Resolute Dawn turned toward the unstable sun. Gas flares lashed around them, radiation levels spiking. The conquered ships hesitated, unwilling to follow so close to danger. Maya's hands danced across controls, sweat dripping down her forehead. "Hold tight, everyone. This is going to be rough." The ship trembled as they entered the star's gravitational well. Warning lights filled the bridge. Shields screamed. Hull plates groaned. Joran shouted from engineering, "If this doesn't kill us, it'll be a miracle." Ilara stood tall, her eyes fixed forward. "We make our own miracles." The star's surface bulged, light twisting as its core gave way. Space itself rippled. Leora's voice was sharp. "Now, Captain, this is it. Engage engines." The ship roared forward just as the star collapsed inward. A tidal wave of gravity surged outward, a storm of impossible force. The Resolute Dawn caught the wave, its hull screaming as it was hurled across the system. Space twisted. Stars stretched into lines, and for a moment it felt as though they were flying faster than time itself. Behind them, the collapsing star ripped into a black hole. The conquered fleet, caught too close, struggled to flee. Some escaped, but others were dragged into the chaos, torn apart by forces they could not withstand. On the Resolute Dawn, the crew clung to their stations, every nerve stretched to breaking. The ship shook, but it held. The wave carried them far, flinging them into the depths of space, beyond the reach of pursuit. Then, silence. The stars steadied. The ship floated once more, battered but alive. Slowly, one by one, the crew let out breaths they hadn't realized they were holding. Maya laughed, half mad with relief. Joran slumped in his chair, whispering, "I can't believe we survived." Kieran looked at Alara with awe. "Captain, and we did it, we beat them." Alara nodded, her voice quiet but firm. "No, humanity did. This is only the beginning." Word of the impossible maneuver would spread. The Conquered's fleet had been crippled, their authority shaken. And everywhere oppressed species would whisper, "The humans crossed the line. The humans defied the fleet. The humans survived the star." For the galaxy, it was a turning point. For the crew of the Resolute Dawn, it was proof that they had chosen the right path. They had crossed not just a border, but a boundary of fear itself, and there was no looking back. The Resolute Dawn floated in the quiet expanse of space, far beyond any maps the Concorde had kept. The stars stretched endlessly, untouched, glittering with the kind of beauty that humans had only dreamed of. After the dangerous escape from the collapsing star, the crew was weary, yet exhilarated. They had survived what no one thought possible. They had outsmarted the Conquered fleet, and they were free. Captain Alara Miles stood on the bridge watching the constellation shift as the ship moved forward. The silence was almost complete, except for the hum of engines and the occasional beep from sensors scanning for nearby systems. She could feel the weight of history pressing on her shoulders. Humanity had crossed the line, survived ancient machines, and defied one of the galaxy's greatest powers. Now they were pioneers in a space where no human had ever been. Kieran Hale approached her quietly. "Captain, we've been out here for days. No Conquered fleets, no signals. The systems are untouched. We could stop, rest, explore, maybe even start building settlements." Alara shook her head. "We cannot stop. If we settle too soon, we risk being found, and there's still so much to see." The galaxy is bigger than we ever imagined, and we've only just begun. Maya Wren grinned from her pilot station. I like the way you think, Captain. Nothing like a little adventure to make life exciting. The crew laughed softly, a mix of relief and joy. For a moment, the fear of the past, the line, the conquered, the collapsing star, faded into the background. They were human, and they were alive. And that was enough. Dr. Leora Vance moved toward the observation window, her eyes wide with wonder. Look at that, she whispered. Beyond a nearby nebula, a planet glowed with soft green light, its surface covered in forests that reflected sunlight like crystal. No conquered maps, no records, completely untouched. Alara joined her, her expression softening. This is why we crossed the line, to see what's out here, to find freedom. The crew spent the next days exploring the nearby systems, scanning planets and moons, documenting everything they could. Some worlds were barren, others rich with strange life. Every discovery reminded them that the galaxy was full of opportunities humans could grasp if they were bold enough. But freedom came with responsibility. Alara reminded her crew daily, we cannot be careless. Every choice we make out here has consequences. We are the first humans in this space. Others may follow. If we fail, we risk losing not just ourselves but humanity's chance at a future. Even with the conquered fleet weakened, their shadow lingered. Messages intercepted by Rin Calder showed that the conquered was reorganizing, preparing to hunt them relentlessly. They would not forgive the humans who had dared to cross the line and survive. Kieran frowned as he read the transmissions. They think they can stop us, Captain. They don't understand what we are capable of. Alara smiled faintly. They never do. That's the difference between humans and other species. We take risks, we adapt, and sometimes we surprise the galaxy. The Resolute Dawn drifted toward a star system with twin suns, their light bouncing off nearby asteroids in dazzling patterns. Sensors detected ruins similar to the ones they had found beyond the line. Ancient machines, silent now, lay half-buried in the rocky surfaces of moons. Leora examined the scans, her brow furrowed. These structures, they are old. Older than anything we have on record, but they are not completely inactive. There's residual energy. Perhaps something remains alive. Alara studied the images. We must be careful. We've learned what happens when we underestimate ancient technology. The crew agreed and approached the ruins cautiously. They landed on the largest moon, their boots kicking up dust that glittered like gold in the twin sunlight. The ruins were enormous, spiraling towers that looked like they had been frozen in motion. Some towers seemed to move slightly, as if responding to their presence. As they explored, Rin's voice came over the comm. Captain, I'm picking up faint energy signals. Not dangerous, but unusual. Could be machinery. Or communication arrays. Alara nodded. Keep scanning. We need to understand what we found before we move further. Hours passed as the crew studied the ruins. They found strange artifacts, delicate and advanced, created with a skill that made even human engineers marvel. Leora ran tests, careful not to activate anything they didn't understand. These civilizations, Leora said quietly, they knew how to survive across millennia, but they didn't have humans. They never adapted like we do. They followed patterns. We don't have to, Alara smiled. Exactly. We will take their knowledge, learn from it, but we will not be bound by it. As night fell on the moon, though night here was a play of shadows from the twin suns, the crew gathered back at the ship. The Resolute Dawn was small but cozy, its systems humming with life. They ate in silence for a while, the sense of wonder still fresh in their minds. Finally, Kieran spoke. Captain, do you think anyone will follow us? Other humans, I mean. If we survive this, if we thrive. Alara looked out at the stars, her eyes reflecting distant light. Some will. But that's not the point. The point is that we showed it is possible. We crossed the line. We survived ancient dangers. We escaped the conquered fleet. Humanity can survive anywhere if we are clever, brave, and united. The words hung in the room, heavy with meaning. Each crew member felt it deeply. They were the beginning of something new, not just for themselves, but for all of humanity. Days turned into weeks as they explored further, charting new systems, discovering planets teeming with life forms unlike anything the conquered had documented. They made notes, gathered samples, and sent encrypted messages back toward Earth using long-range communications that would never be traced by the conquered. Humans would know what was possible. Even in the face of danger, they found joy. They raced through asteroid belts for sport, studied alien skies for scientific curiosity, and held quiet celebrations for the smallest victories. Another system mapped, another artifact decoded, another day survived. But freedom was not without peril. A massive storm of plasma erupted near a gas giant they were studying, forcing Maya to perform maneuvers that would have terrified any other pilot. Debris from a collapsed moon struck their shields, denting the hull and shaking the ship violently. Yet they endured. Every challenge they faced made them stronger, more connected, more human. Ilara stood at the bridge one evening alone, watching a nebula swirl in brilliant colors outside the glass. She thought about the Concord, still trying to hunt them, still trying to control humanity. She thought about the line, the star collapse, the ancient ruins, and every risk they had taken. And she smiled. The galaxy had taught them one thing. Humans were not meant to be caged. Humans were meant to explore, to create, to survive against all odds. Every trial they faced only proved it more clearly. The crew gathered around her then, as they often did in the quiet hours. They shared stories of what they had seen, laughed at small mistakes, and dreamed aloud of what they might find next. Maya nudged Ilara playfully. "You know, Captain, some of the crew think you're crazy for pushing us so far." Ilara laughed softly. "Crazy, maybe, but humans are meant to be a little crazy. That's what keeps us alive when the galaxy tries to crush us." Kieran nodded. "And it works. Every time." The ship sailed on, leaving the known galaxy behind. The conquered fleets would search for them endlessly. But humans had already proven one truth. Rules could be broken, boundaries could be crossed, and freedom could be taken. Ilara looked at the stars, a gentle pride swelling in her chest. "We crossed the line," she whispered, "and we will never look back. Humanity is just beginning its journey. The galaxy will remember our name. Not because we followed the rules, but because we dared to write our own." The resolute Dawn moved forward into uncharted space, its crew full of courage, curiosity, and hope. Every star they passed was a new horizon. Every planet was a new challenge. And every day was a testament to the power of human spirit, the spirit that would never be caged, never be tamed, and never ever look back. In the silence of space, far from conquered law and beyond the line, humanity's story was only beginning. And for the first time in centuries, humans were truly free.